Hey, good morning and thanks for stopping by. Today is go time, so we're going to get around to doing some tests on those ALLPowers solar panels that were sent out to me for the purpose of review. And it's already starting to get nice and hot here, so I've got the hat to cover up my own solar panel, the bald spot. So what I'm actually doing is I've got the Bluetti and I'm going to give that a quick what is the Bluetti? The EB150, I think it is. We're going to need to draw that down because I've got that topped up at the moment because I use it around the place. So we're going to draw that down. I've got a little heater over there. I'm going to plug that in. I give that around about an 900 watt load, I think, consistent. So we're going to put that on the Bluetti. We're going to draw it right down. Then we're going to grab out those ALLPowers solar panels and just have a bit of a play with them, put them around in the sun and see what they do individually, see what they do combined, and just see what sort of a package we've got there all together combined with the Bluetti. So ultimately, everything I really need is going to be included in these two kits. There's nothing additional I really need to buy. So the Bluetti itself comes with a plug that plugs into the Bluetti for charging, and then on the other end of that it's got two MC4s. What we can do is we can use the cable that comes with the Bluetti, plug it straight into the solar panels because they've got MC4s on them, and we're off and running. There's nothing additional required, so it'd be silly for me to start disconnecting those and trying to wire in all the Anderson plugs. I can certainly make up adapters and we'll do that later on. As far as the MC4s, because you've got the individual leads, it makes it much simpler than Anderson plugs for being able to convert from running the solar panels parallel to putting them in series and pumping it into that Bluetti. But I do know comfortably that we can put both of these panels in series, and that's going to work better for the MPPT controller that's inside the Bluetti because it's got a maximum of 10 amps input. What we want to do is increase the voltage. We'll put them in series, that'll lower the current, and then the MPPT can do its job, and we're going to be putting the most power we can into the Bluetti. So the Bluetti is basically topped up. It hasn't been topped up for a little while, but it is showing full capacity. Running at around about 1,000 watts. It's around about 105, 110 amp hour battery in it. So ultimately we're going to get about an hour out of this. So I'm just going to let this run for probably at least a good half an hour or so to well and truly deplete that battery. We'll get it down to about half. Now I've got to tell you, if you're a camper and you're just getting started out or whatever, doesn't started out or just a seasonal camp, it doesn't really matter. Look, if you're getting into four-wheel driving and you're looking for tables for your four-wheel drive, I can really recommend these ones, these little folding tables from Bunnings. They've got these folding blow molded tables and these are bloody awesome as far as just being able to throw into your four-wheel drive. That's the bigger one there. I've also got the smaller one, which is probably about 4 foot maybe, I suppose. And it's got adjustable legs where this one doesn't. This one's more your trestle, normal trestle size table. But the other one's smaller and still an awesome table, and yeah, really handy. So if you're looking for camp tables, don't go to BCF and Anaconda and stuff like that. You can certainly do that, but I'd really recommend just ducking down to Bunnings. Not everyone, almost every one of my camp tables, certainly the ones that I use now, have come from Bunnings. They fold, they're lightweight, they're durable, and they're cheap as chips. So go and have a look. I just want to give you a comparison to the normal style folding panels, which I have on top of my head, which are quite heavy. I don't think I'd ever get a job doing these ones. Hang on, maybe I would. I don't know how they do it, seriously. No, definitely. But we're gonna check the weight on these. But as you can tell, they're a little bit heavy. But these are a 200 watt panel, but they're a 24 volt, so they're probably a little bit larger, but they're still a 200 watt panel. So ultimately we'll put these down and we'll check some weights and stuff. As far as permanent installs on the Pajero and stuff like that, you still won't get me to go past a house panel, a 24 volt used house panel. They're cheap as chips. Get yourself a solar controller, an MPP solar controller that will handle the higher voltage, and you're up and going for real cheap. So anyway, let's just open these and then I'll go and open the other ones and we'll show you the difference. So we're going to weigh these. So these are just 200 watt folding solar panels, like your standard aluminium frames. Pretty much bang on 20 kilo those. And I've got to tell you, look, I'm still really happy with these. These get set up the front of the caravan, all that sort of stuff when I'm parked up. We are, oh, there we go, 7 kilos. I just went to measure the temperature of the Bluetti with my little temp gun, and you'll see we're getting an error. This has actually been sitting in the sun beside the Bluetti, and this has shit itself. This has said, yeah, no dice, not playing. The temperature meter just stopped working, but the Bluetti had its fans and everything going, but it's still working and it was still powering that heater. And it would have been getting some heat from that heater as well, so it would have been even hotter still. Sitting out in the sun, this is Australia, baby. Now we're down behind the solar panels, and that dog's going to spot me, going to come running. So we've got our MC4 connectors here at the back of the solar panels. As far as the Bluetti goes, it does come with this cable, which is the input cable for the front, which is a solar input for the MPPT charger, or that 240 volt charger as well. It's actually quicker to charge it from the solar panels. We're just going to plug in one to start with. We might just test them individually and just test them for consistency. It is getting hot out of here. Hot as a devil's anus. Okay, so we're currently seeing 123 watts going in there, which is a little bit less than the 200 we're hoping for. So let's just go and adjust those panels and angle that back, and we'll see if we can improve this input here. Okay, so we've gone up to about 130. I've got to tell you, it's pretty easy to adjust these. It's not too bad actually. Again, the legs are flimsy, but it's doing its job. So we've gone back up to around about 127, give or take, 126, 127. So that's going to be about as good as we're going to get, I think. Have a look at putting these through a Victron charger later on, see if we can make some improvements there. Now, just a tip for you, if you're going to be messing around with MC4 connectors on the back of your solar panels, pick up a couple of these. These are basically just like a little wrench specifically made for the MC4 connectors, and it just makes your life that much simpler. Basically, these little tabs clip in there. So to pull that apart, you need to push those two little tabs in and get it apart, which sometimes is easy, sometimes it becomes a real pain in the backside. Just on the end's got the two prongs. You just push those in like that, and she separates. Really, really handy if you want to go making your own MC4s, because what you'll find is it does have a little grooved spanner, I guess, section on the bottom for tightening them up, and for that section there as well. So you really want two of them. You want one on that bottom section where I just showed you, and one on here, and real handy for getting these tightened up, which means that your MC4s are going to be nice and waterproof from the seal. Now these connectors here are basically for connecting up your solar panels in parallel. So if we wanted to connect the two panels together and increase the current that we're outputting, and this is how you would do this. You'd have two on your positive, two on your negative. That'll become your single feed into the Bluetti. We are going to put it in series. So the challenge here is that I want to connect these up in series, but the cables are just too short to have in this configuration, and then obviously get these to reach here. I just can't do it. Obviously I could move these panels back, but after a certain while, once the sun gets lower, that's going to start putting shade on these. I don't know if you remember from the previous video where I said that they actually have the press studs on the top and the bottom. I also mentioned that having the press studs on top and bottom would allow you to flip them upside down. And I remember saying, oh, but I don't remember why you would do that. And I don't know whether I left that in the cut or not. But I just figured out why you can do that, and this is going to be good. So what we're going to do is we're going to move these ones up here. We're going to flip these legs up the other way. So what we've done now by flipping this one, we've put all of our MC4 connectors in the middle there, and we can reach. Means the Bluetti is going to be in the sun, but what we can do is actually position that behind the solar panels and give it the shade from the panel. So let's go and plug it in. We'll take up to 60 volts. and up to 10 amps. So we're seeing about the same out of the other panel, because I'm currently seeing 264 going into the Bluetti, which means that we're seeing around about 130 out of each panel. So I suppose we're seeing close enough to 20 amps going in. If I go back in, we're going straight back up to around about the 260. So that seems to be its happy medium. So I'm just going to leave that sitting out here in the sun. I'm going to let it do its thing. It's just getting too hot to be sitting out here. It's around about 30 degrees. And I don't know if you can see the sweat on me just sitting here. I am getting absolutely cooked. So I was expecting probably more than around about the 130 out of each panel. So as far as the Bluetti is concerned, out of that 400 watts of solar panel that we've got sitting there, we're actually getting 265, so 270, around about 135 per panel, which is about 20 amps, which is good. We're just going to throw in a couple of final tests. We'll just throw the multimeter on these because I know people like to see these tests. Now, just to give you an idea of what the sky looks like, it is overcast, so we've got some white cloud over there. It is fairly light, but it is going to impact on the results ever so slightly, but not too much. So it'll be interesting to see how these panels handle that. So I'm just going to pull out the multimeter and we'll just throw it on and just give you a quick look at that as well. So for me, and as you can see, the panels are nice and rugged. It's handled the dog walking over it a number of times. Now, whilst I appreciate these tests, these are the sort of tests I would more likely do in the field. If I'm going to purchase a test, I would run these tests, grab the panel, throw a multimeter on it, just have a look, make sure it's making voltage and making current. I actually prefer real world tests, putting a load on it and just using it in the situation that you would actually use it out in the field. So in my case, that field use scenario would be connecting the panels up to the little Bluetti and just seeing what sort of power it was putting in there. So we saw that it was putting up around about 260 odd watts, 270 thereabouts. Alright, let's just grab a multimeter and just put her on voltage. Okay, and that's on DC. I haven't got my glasses on, so hopefully just stick those in there. Alright, now open circuit on this. I'm going to put it up on the screen because I can't remember exactly, but I remember it was the 21 volt. It might have been 21.9. I'm currently reading with shade 20.85. So that's close enough. That's within a volt with shade. So that obviously would increase slightly if the sun came out was a little bit better. We have got these flat on the ground. It's about 12 o'clock here, middle of summer in Australia, and about 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock there, Eastern Standard Time, daylight Eastern Standard Time. It's pretty much going to put the sun straight up. To test our current, because we've got a clamp meter handy, we'll just short these two together. And we're just going to use our clamp meter. Put that in. That's actually a good result. We're actually seeing around about 7 amps coming out of that. Hopefully you can see that cloud up there is getting thicker and thicker. Ideal situation for testing them. But I did see 7 with partial cloud. We're dropping back around to about 6. In ideal conditions, you would hope to see closer to the specs that are on the back of the panels. So yeah, maybe about a voltage or maybe about 1 or 2 volts lower than what the specs actually say, within an amp or so of the short circuit current as well. Keeping in mind the conditions we've got clouded sun, the panels are laying on the ground, so they will be warming up. Outside it is probably around about 30 degrees at the moment. When they do the tests and put those specs on the back of the panels, it's under very specific conditions, around about 25 degrees. Being that we're 30 degrees outside, these are laying on the ground, the panels will be heating up. You can expect the output to be degraded somewhat there as well. So you have to be realistic about what you're going to expect out of your panels. Let's get a reading there. So 55, 56 degrees Celsius on that one there. And on this one, 55, 56, up around the 55 degrees Celsius. Keep in mind that solar panels get less efficient the hotter they get. That's why laying them down flat like that is not ideal. You want to have them sitting up a little bit, have a little bit of air blowing behind them. Even if it's going to be hot air, still some sort of air circulation is going to be better for you and you'll get better performance out of your panel. So with that in mind, those panels are 30 degrees hotter laying down there like that than what they would be when they tested them and put the readings on the back. So don't expect to see exactly what they put on the back of the panel. probably not going to happen. In conditions like this is how I would be using the panels. I'll be throwing them out, just laying them down on the deck, and just taking whatever I can get out of them. So this gives me an idea of what I'm going to see out of my panels. And you too, I guess. At 90 degrees, alright, we're going up to 8, 9, 10, 10.59, no. Alright, so 10.59, hopefully you saw that, it did peak up to 10.59 as the sun cleared that cloud, but it's just coming back over again, unfortunately. So that panel peaked at 10.59 whilst we got full sun ever so briefly up there, and we'll just quickly test the voltage there as well, and in shade 19.86. So again, we still have partial cloud up there, but that's a good way just to test your solar panels. Certainly if you're going out to buy second-hand ones, probably not so much of an issue. Yeah, I did falcon myself just then. But if you're buying second-hand house panels, which I'd wholly and hardly recommend, certainly for installs on top of four-wheel drives and stuff like that, then take along a multimeter and just test the open circuit voltage and the short circuit current as well, just to make sure that you're getting roughly what you should be seeing as listed on the back of the panel. And in this instance for these, look, it feels like that sun's coming out. Let's just race down and give the other one another chance, eh? 8.4, shading from the dog, 6.5, and still creeping up. I can feel that sun on my skin, and hopefully you can see this, the sweat on my hands just from being out here. See if we get up over 10. There we go. That's nice, but just a peak at 10. There's that sun come out, and now that sun's going back behind the shade, which is a relief for me. Great for solar panel testing. When the sun goes behind that cloud, it's much more of a relief for me. So there you go. So both panels have tested near enough to their open circuit voltage like we'd expect, and the current that we're getting out of both of these is over the 10 amps, which is basically pretty much what we've seen under load. So I'm just testing the voltage on this one, and we're getting a little bit more sun. It's 20.13, so there you go. So we're close enough to spec of the panels according to the manufacturer, in not ideal conditions, so I reckon we could probably squeeze a little bit more out of those, but giving those a thumbs up. Okay, so it's been all day, and I've just left the solar panels out and the Bluetti out just all day, just let it do its thing. And I'll just come back out. So they've been out for about 4 or 5 hours, I suppose, maybe about 4 hours. Hopefully you can see the trees behind me there a little bit. I'll certainly if we go up to these trees here, you can see just how windy it has been today. It's actually been quite windy, and it still is here. So the point is, you can see that it's quite windy, and I haven't been out and touched these at all today, and I'm happy to report that these are still standing. So I actually had concerns about the legs on the back and how sturdy they were going to be. That is, I guess, the biggest weak point of these solar panels, as we discussed in the previous video. As you can see with this wind, you can see the jacaranda just here getting blown around a little bit, and these things aren't moving. Now I did consider pegging these down today just to see whether that made any difference, but I didn't have to, so I'm happy with that. Now one thing that wasn't mentioned on Amazon, and I certainly haven't seen it mentioned in the specs or anywhere like that, one real benefit is makes a great RC car ramp. Okay, so as you can see, an RC car guy, I am not. What I've got is a system there between the Bluetti and the two solar panels is a system that's going to supply me whatever the Bluetti has in it overnight, and I can be confident that I can top that back up with those two solar panels putting it out, and that's obviously in a full sun sort of day. In an upcoming video we'll slap them onto the Victron controllers I've got and just see what sort of output we get from those. that'll just be intertwined with another video. It won't be another video, I'm not saying. I think 2 is plenty for these. But we can get them up in the K-on rack. Wouldn't want to be running the oven or anything under them while they're up there. But yeah, they certainly fit up there, so that's a good thing. Now if you're a caravaner, one thing that should be a priority for you is weight. And I've got to tell you, I have pretty much gone through this caravan, just stripped everything out of it that I could, just to avoid adding extra weight. In addition to your weight, you need to pay attention to where you store things as well, and just that balance. So anything under this bed is rearward of the tyres. So that basically I'm sitting in line with the tyres and the bed is rearward of the caravan. So anything that's at the back of a caravan, any weight that you have at the caravan can cause a sway, basically. But I used to have the annex and all that sort of stuff under here. There's the dog. And I just took it all out. I just didn't want that weight sitting behind the rear wheel. So with these being 20 kilos worth of weight for 200 watts of solar, don't get me wrong, I was happy. It was what it was when it was, but things have changed and I don't need 20 kilos worth of solar panels sitting in here when I can chuck in those 2 little ones. And you can see how awkward this was. Don't get me wrong, I was happy to use these. But just pulling these out now because the caravan has been closed up, I'm sweating like a bastard. So these were heavy and they were awkward. So what I want you to do is just compare that process you see me go through with those big solar panels compared to this. So if I pull up and want to get the solar out now, rather than fighting with that big bugger, come up and pop the bed up. 1, 2, and away we go. So yeah, at this stage, happy with the output. But ultimately that's not bad for the folding solar panels. And at the end of the day, it really depends on the current we're pulling out and we're putting back into our battery, and we're seeing around about 10 amps per panel. So look, I'm happy with that. So that's been the ALLPowers 200 watt folding solar panels. A little bit of quick testing, and we'll touch on these through a number of different videos in the future when I get out and we do camping and stuff like that. You'll see these pop up, you'll see a little bit more of the Bluetti. And as time goes, if we run into any issues, I'll let you know. So from us 2 fatties, thanks very much for stopping by. And tell them, we'll catch you on the next one. Cheers. Welcome to 22. Have it. Have it. Ready? Let's go. Bit me. Bloody hand, I think.